Hey crafty cuties, I am super excited to share with you how to make Bohemian beads today. So let's get into what supplies you'll be needing. And today I am going to be using things that I have in my little boho Bohemian pack that came in my Bohemian kits. I also have the little embellishment pack because there are some goodies that you can kind of mix and match, so you can grab both of these if you have the kit. If you do not, we will go over the really simple materials that you need. I have a little plier that has a wire cutter. I have some glue and scissors. I'm gonna dump this out and go ahead to show you what you need as a base. So I narrowed it down to what I think I'm probably going to use, but I do want this first bead to be kind of basic and easy for those who have never made a bead. I may or may not add some things as we go, but let's just get started. So I'm going to use a 3-inch head pin. And so you can also use wire. If you just have plain wire, you can use, a piece of that. This one has like a little kind of nail head on the end here. The looped ones, I will be honest, I prefer these ones right here with a little loop on the end, but I could not find them in a 3-inch size, and I definitely like to work with a bigger size. So we have the head pin. We have our base right here. This is actually a balloon stick. I imagine you could use a straw too. It's probably going to be a little flimsier, but just to give you an idea, I have a couple little seed beads as kind of a stopper, you'll see. I have 2 beads, one for the top, one for the bottom. I have 2 little bead caps, really just decorational, but I'm going to use them probably. I have a little bell, some wire. I also have some trims, some eyelash trim, some really cool like yarn, and then I just have some scraps over here, and you really don't need much because it doesn't take much to wrap around your base, but I have some muslin kind of for the base of it. I have some just little bits and pieces of boho fabrics that I liked, some trims. You can see it's not a ton, just a little piece. And then I just have some vintage paper here that I may use as well. And then my glue, scissors, and pliers. So let's finally get started. All right, so we are going to start threading on our seed bead, and this is going to be threaded onto the bottom of our boho bead. So for this one, I'm not going to have any charms hanging down because I would need to create a loop here down at the bottom. And I'm just going to keep this one basic, but on the next one we make together, I will show you a charm hanging down. But back to this one, I am going to next add a bead cap. This is not necessary, but I think it looks really nice. A bigger bead. And just the seed bead is really just to hold these on because the holes on the bead cap and bigger bead may be a little too big for the stopper, the little nail head that we have there. I went ahead and chose a base that is a little bit shorter. Let's see, I think it's about 2 inches. I like to have a little bit more extra space to work with, so that's why I went ahead and cut mine down. So you can see this is what I started out with. I just trimmed some off. So you can make yours whatever size you want, just keep in mind what size wire you're working with. And we're just going to basically repeat the pattern we just did over here. I could use a different bead, but I just happen to have this same white one, so I'm going to use that. Then a bead cap, and then a little seed bead. And remember, now this is going to be the top. So I do want to create a loop so that we can hang it from something, but I also want to add a little bell. I love having bells on my charms. I think it makes it so much fun. And so then we are going to take our pliers. We're almost done with this base, so pretty simple. We're going to take the pliers and I'm going to make a little loop. I'm going to trim this down just a bit. I think about 1/4 of an inch is a good amount to work with. So you may or may not need to trim yours. And I'm just going to take the very top. You want to make sure to pull everything down as tight as possible. And I'm just going to kind of loop this around. I know that's a little out of focus there, but I need both hands right now. So whoops. And then I'm going to just basically kind of shut it closed. Not closed, but I'm going to make sure that that wire comes all the way back into contact with itself so that it doesn't have the ability to have things fall off of it. So you do kind of have to work with this for a moment, especially at this angle. So then you are left with this little loop, which we can use to, you know, hang however you want to hang your bead, but we'll get to that at the end. This is what we are working with now. Everything is enclosed and we are ready to decorate. So I like starting off with something that is plain, which easy. I'm just going to use some muslin that I have. You can use really anything. You could use paper, you can use different trims if you want. But what I like to keep in mind for this very first layer is that it's going to get covered up. So because of that, that's why I like to just go into my scraps and use something that I don't mind kind of, you know, it's not going to be seen. I'm going to add a little bit of glue here. This can get a little messy, but basically I'm just going to take my muslin now and I'm going to wrap this around once or twice. And you do not need much. So if you got one of these kits, you'll notice that in your pack you'll have a little sample of muslin fabric, and it's not a lot because you don't need a lot. So I'm just going to kind of work this around and just kind of wait till that grabs onto the glue. I'm going to add a little bit more glue, and then I'm going to trim this because I don't need this whole piece, but I do want my base here to be completely covered. So I'm just going to kind of roll that up and just go around once more so that I can cover the entire thing here. So again, just adding glue as I go. Make sure that this is wrapped around pretty tight. There we go. And I'm even going a couple times around just because I kind of like the look of a fuller bead, so you can kind of do whatever you wish. And then I'll go ahead and trim off the excess here. Okay, so, and just go ahead and make sure that that is glued all the way down tight. And for the decorating part, guys, there is no right or wrong way that you can go about this. I like to kind of start and kind of just plan out and see what fabrics I think I might want to use. And also keeping in mind which fabrics I want to be seen, because again, we're doing a lot of layering, so some pieces may not get seen, but I love this piece right here. I'm not going to use it all. You really only need little bits and pieces here, so I'm going to trim that down. this on for just a moment to let everything kind of dry. You can use a quicker drying glue if you kind of want to do these quicker. I think hot glue would probably be good, but I'm going to be wrapping things around. So now I am going to start out with my eyelash trim here. I'm just going to add a little drop of glue here. Again, I think that hot glue might be beneficial if you want to make these a little quicker, but that's okay. We're going to work with what we have. And I'm just going to wrap this around kind of randomly. Just a little bit here. Alright, so you can see how things are kind of getting covered up here. You don't have to do this much. In fact, I'm going to trim a little bit of this because this eyelash trim is pretty intense. Do I like that? I think I do. So, just going to add some glue again. That's a lot of glue, but just wanting that to stick. And I am okay with little bits and pieces falling off. You can make yours as neat or as messy as you like. I'm going to add some wire now, and I'm going to use this copper wire. I believe this is a 24 gauge wire. If you're shopping for wire, I would just get something, I just looked for something that was somewhat bendable, just to make it easy, because you do want to be able to kind of mold this around your bead, and if it's bendable enough, then you won't even need to use pliers anyways. But I'm going to work on kind of straightening mine out just a bit, since I had it kind of coiled up, but it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. We're going to be winding it around anyways. Then I'm just going to find a place that I want to start. And I'm just kind of use my fingers to start out, because again, this one makes it easy enough for me to do that. So I'm just going to take my hands and wrap this around, keeping it pretty tight to our bead here. And I'm going to trim this down a little bit because I think I want to add some little beads to this, or maybe some sequins. I found a tiny little sequin, so I'm going to just thread that on just to add some last minute little textures and bits and pieces. Yeah, that looks really cute. So that's, you can also add little beads like I mentioned, and just kind of add those as you go. I definitely like adding little bits and pieces to the wire. And you can go around as many or as few times as you want. I'm going to keep adding some sequins because I really like that. Okay, you can do fun designs. You can do all kinds of things with the wire. And you don't really need too much, so I'm going to add one more little seed bead here. If I can get it. And then to end this wire, I'm just going to make sure that it's wrapped around really tight. You can, like I said, you can do really fun things like making little loops and little circular bits, kind of like that if you see. So play around with it and have fun. But I'm going to take my pliers and just make sure that this is down super tight. And there's our bead. So for this one, you can attach it. I'm going to be attaching it, I think, using a bulb pin because it's just easy and simple. So remember we created that loop up here, and that one was super fun. And see, I ended up covering up the fabrics I was wanting to show. So like I say, just have fun with it. Don't overthink it. We're going to make one more so that we can have a charm hanging at the bottom. I'm going to try to remember to use some materials that I didn't in this one, like the paper. And so let's get started on the second. For this one, I want to make it a little bit bigger, and I want to create a loop on the bottom and the top. So I'm going to show you how you can do that with just some wire. It's easier to get than the pin heads. And so I have, I think, 22 gauge wire here, and you can see mine's not super straight, but it's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to take our base, which is that balloon stick. We're just going to wire that on just so I can see what size I want the wire. And I know that at the top I want a loop, so I'm going to go ahead and start by creating that. So I'm basically hoping this focuses again. I'm going to take my pliers and just take the very tip of that and just wrap it around. Whoops. Goodness. Just wrap it around to create that loop, and remember to make sure that it goes all the way down so that you are left with a loop like so. Squeeze that even a little bit more together. Kind of straighten out as you go, and you can even use your hands if you have a wire that, you know, allows you to do that. And then I am going to add some beads to this. I'm just kind of measuring, so let's go ahead and do that actually. So I'm going to take a seed bead, and I'm going to add a bigger bead. I'll do a bead cap as well actually this time still. Just slide those all the way up. So now we have our loop, our seed bead, and our bigger bead. Now we can add this back on. And it's really simple, guys. Now we're just going to see how much we need at the bottom, and I'll add the beads first just so we can make sure we know. I'll do a seed bead again, and I'm just randomly picking some beads I have. You can add as many or as little beads as you want. So maybe I'll add a couple more down at the bottom actually, just to kind of make it fun. So I'm going to add this wooden bead that I have, and then this little pink one that I have. Then I think I'll even add another seed bead just to have fun, because again, I keep saying that, but we have more room to work with this way. So now I can kind of estimate how much I need to create that loop again. So about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. And then I'm going to create that loop so that we can add a charm to that. So I'm just going to pull that down. Just kind of work with that for a minute. It really doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be noticeable, I don't think, if your loop isn't perfect, but just take a moment to work with it. Try not to overwork the wire either, just because it can cause it to break. So now we have our top with a loop, bottom with a loop, pretty simple. And so, like I said, I wanted to add a charm. I've been saving this one. So I'm going to take a little jump ring, or open ring I believe it's called, like so, and open that up. Now I could have added my charm before I closed that loop, but I kind of like how dangly it gets by adding this. So I'm just going to open that, put the ring through my charm, and put it through my loop. If it's easier, you can add the charm at the end. And I'll just go ahead and close that up, and then we can decorate like we did before. A couple different things that you can use to attach your beads to things. You can use little charm rings. I have these 3/4 of an inch charm rings that are honestly the perfect size. You might need to make your loop a little bit bigger. You can attach them to a paper clip. Really simple. Everyone has paper clips. Or again, you can use these little bulb pins. It's my favorite way. I just like how they look. But those are just a few options. So let's go ahead and get into decorating this. I'm going to start this one out just the same way, where I cover it with some muslin. And this time I just have kind of a bigger strip of muslin, and that's totally fine. It's going to work just the same. And so I'll just take that and wrap it around. I'm going to wrap this one around kind of a few times just to make sure everything's covered, but also just to give this one a little bit more bulk. Okay, so we'll just finish that up here. I'm just kind of gluing as we go along to make sure that everything is nice and secure. All right, so I actually just ended using that whole strip. I didn't need to, but I kind of like how it feels a little bit sturdier to have your base be a little bit thicker. So there we go. Let's see. I definitely want to use this fabric, but I want to avoid what I did last time where I just covered it completely. So I'm gonna think this one through a little bit better, hopefully. I want to use some paper as well. Sequin strand that I added, I like it, but it's not really wanting to stay on too well, so I'm going to take another piece of wire and do the same thing where I just create a little loop here, and I'm hoping I can maybe wrap this around these sequins. Start up here so you can see that little coil, and then I'm just going to use my hands and wrap it around to kind of secure those on, and hot glue would have just made it a lot better, but that's okay. I feel like I could keep going, but I'm gonna stop here because this one does have a lot going on, but I love how this one turned out. I love the dangly little charm that it has, and I like the different colors. So I'm just gonna add another little bulb pin at the top here. That's how I will attach it to my journal or whatever. I wanted there. So there we go. There's that bead. See how different these two look, and I just love that when you turn it, there's just all kinds of interest happening. I am telling you guys, once you get started, you're not going to be able to stop making these Bohemian beads. Here's a couple more that I made. Let me know down below which method you like best. Do you like using the head pins, or do you like using the wire? I definitely prefer the wire because it's easier to make whatever size you would like. You can make them a little bit bigger, easier, and I really like having the loop on the top and bottom. So guys, let me know if you have any questions, and I will get back to you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!